Hi, Steve. So I always love to start these episodes. First off, who are you? What's your company do? And how'd you get into it?
My name's Steve Heckeroth. I've been involved in renewables for about 55 years and in electric vehicles for 35 years. I was doing electric cars for a while and then found out the battery weight was the biggest issue. And tractors actually need weight for traction. You can buy
Hmm.
weights to put on tractors. So I switched my efforts to building electric tractors and built big four-wheel tractors for about 30 years and decided that the compaction issues and the rise of the regenerative ag movement, where we use cover crops instead of tillage and we protect the soil instead of leaving it bare.
Hmm.
And every time you till the soil, the carbon goes into the atmosphere. But when
Yeah.
you have a cover crop, you're drawing down carbon into the soil. So we're making really small tractors that are made to produce food in the most efficient way,
Yeah.
using solar energy whenever possible.
That's amazing. So it does seem like, from my vantage point, that you guys are making a real conscious effort, though, to go after sort of that smaller farm instead of, say, bigger John Deere type massive tractors. What's kind of the thought pattern behind that sort of strategy?
Well, if you think about it, fossil fuel is a bigger and bigger problem
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
Um, and the bigger the farm, the more distant your market. So, the more you put into like a big monocrop farm, the more distribution, the longer your distribution chain, and the more energy is used to distribute the food. And with monocrops, everything's lower quality because it's about quantity, not quality. And so there's many reasons to go to a small community scale where you can have a farmer's market and be really close and know the farmers that are growing your food and have this
Hmm.
communication. So I think that in the future, we're going to see a lot more community scale farms instead of the huge farms that are all over the world. One of the things that keeps farming on such a big scale is the availability of fossil fuel because it's got so much energy. It's really dense. A 7-pound gallon of diesel has about 30 kilowatt hours. 30 kilowatt hour battery pack weighs about 400 pounds. That's a lithium battery pack.
Hmm.
Lead acid, you could almost weigh a ton. So to try and duplicate that energy density, we need a tractor that is super efficient. And the tractors we make are remote control. They're made to go over a 30-inch bed, which is the most common bed's width for small farms, and just grow food in the most efficient way using renewable energy.
Yeah. That's cool. So I have never made a tractor. I've never thought about making my own tractor. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have also not made their own tractor. What is the starting point? How do you start to kind of put together the plans of what it is to make a tractor using solar power and being as efficient as you're talking about?
Well, you look at around at what's out there. Um, there's the small farms are kind of in two categories. One uses a diesel or gas machine, and the other works by hand with hand tools. It's very hard to be profitable with hand tools, but there are a lot of nice hand tools that could be powered. So you think of a hoe or something and you put them together and you make something that rotates and you've got a tiller.
Hmm.
There's just a lot of cultivation implements that cultivate between the plants that you can pull through the bed instead of just standing there and beating the ground as you go down the row.
Sure.
And then there's the diesel machines, and with the small farms, there is walk-behind machines, and these are there's a big manufacturer in Italy that makes these machines that most of the really small farmers were using, but they're kind of hard to handle, and there's a lot of women farmers and people of smaller stature that really can't manhandle these things. So I came up with the idea of a remote control unit. So it was very easy and intuitive to operate. It's just a trigger finger and a steer. So we put a motor on each wheel so it has zero steer capability, just like a zero steer mower.
Hmm.
And we tried to make it very simple to operate and very inexpensive. It's affordable.
Hmm.
And it also can operate off the sun, which makes it usable anywhere in the world, even if you don't have fossil fuel infrastructure, which most of the 600 million farms in the world don't have.
Right, right. I want to move over a little bit to something I was looking at called your E2T. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what you're trying to do with that brand or that product, I should say?
Well, it's an electric two-wheel tractor, and it's patterned after the walk-behind tractors that are used on a lot of small farms. They're all now currently filled with gas or fueled with gas or diesel, and we wanted to make one that was could be powered off of solar energy or renewables. So that with electric motors, that gives you and batteries, then you are free to use renewables without any need for fossil fuel. We designed it to go over the most common 30-inch bed width, and we designed it to be remote control, as I said. So it's very easy to operate and does the job of the fossil fuel machines, but it does it without any pollution, very low noise, very little physical effort, and a lot more control. You can walk alongside it and see what your plants are doing and see the health of your soil. You're not stuck behind this thing trying to muscle it around.
Right, right. And is there any compromise in terms of just the performance at all? I know, here, any sort of our battery powered stuff, sometimes it just doesn't last as long or as good as gas. What's sort of the quality like using these products over traditional methods?
Well, if you've been in an electric car, you know that the acceleration is pretty instant.
Hmm. Hmm.
That tractors are all about traction. So when you have instant torque, that's a lot better than waiting for a gas engine to get up to 3,000 RPM before you have maximum torque.
Sure.
That's one huge advantage. The other huge advantage is being able to operate it anywhere where the sun shines, which is like 95% of the farms in the world don't have access to fossil fuel infrastructure.
Hmm.
That's a big advantage. The downsides are that you're dependent on a battery that for heavy power usage may not last as long as you want it to. We have a solar shade canopy that you can get for our little tractor that is 550-watt solar shade canopy, and the tractor only requires 300 watts to like pull a trailer or something. The only heavy power needs are when you're operating a power implement like a tiller or a mower or something that is really either cutting grass or digging into the soil. Then you've got a
Sure.
limit on how long you can operate. We have a 5 kilowatt hour battery pack on board that will operate for 2 to 4 hours, depending on the power intake of the implement. It'll go all day just hauling things around. So it serves pretty well. If you do have a very heavy load, we have an exchangeable battery pack.
Very
And
cool. Very cool.
2010 patent on exchangeable packs in
Mm.
tractors. So
That's very,
using that patent, we can slide in a fresh pack and go continuously.
mm, very, very cool. Right now, I believe you're in production for the first 50 units. Is that correct right now? And from some pre-orders, is that where you are right now?
Yeah, we We've been done about a year and a half of testing of this particular tractor, and we've worked out majority of the bugs. We're still
Mhm.
trying to find the optimum electronics so that we can take the next step beyond remote control to navigation and automation, which will open up a lot more markets for us.
Mhm. Mhm.
Lucrative markets like mowing a golf course or something like that.
Sure.
Those machines are in the $80,000 range where we're selling ours for less than 10,000.
Well,
So,
yeah.
yeah,
Where is the hardest where do you think the hardest road is going to be for you in this journey? Is it going to be getting, people to adopt the technologies and using it and sort of shaking off the old mindset? Or is it going to be just what we were just talking about, just the technical side, wiring, battery power, it's just, actually just building the units and getting them out? Where do you think the hardest part of the journey is going to be?
I think the hardest part for us, since we're starting with farmers really don't have very much money. It's
Mhm.
really a hard job and the inputs are very expensive and we've got to make a machine that's affordable for them. And affordable for a farmer is like going finding some used thing and making it work, you know.
Mhm. Mm.
It's not they don't usually buy new equipment,
Yeah.
the
Right.
small farmers. So that's our biggest challenge is to keep it as low cost as we can so that it's affordable for them. And then just sourcing the best electronics that are reliable over time. And the batteries are always evolving. There's always something better coming out. And so we've got to keep up with that and make the
Yeah.
time longer.
Yeah. How does the current sort of political landscape impact what you do? Kind of the projects you're working on. I don't know if there's around maybe tax incentives or grants, et cetera, whatever it might be. Just what's the political climate like for
It's,
your
uh,
company right now?
it's about as challenging as it could be. The tariffs, we were importing some components from India and they slapped a 50% tariff. And then some of the components come from China and they went up to 145% for a while. So it
Mm,
just shut us down.
mm,
We just didn't know what was coming next. And
right.
like we lost at least 6 months and I don't know if we'll fully recover. We're not getting anything from India anymore because of the
Hmm.
tariffs. And China is, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow at this point.
Sure. Right.
And the other thing that happened was all the incentives for renewables were cut.
Hmm.
And now we're spending, like $1 trillion a year on subsidies for fossil fuel. So the balance it's way out of balance. No
Yeah.
subsidies for renewables, $1 trillion a year for fossil fuel. If we could level that playing field, renewables would like solar is still the cheapest source of electricity,
Right.
even
Right.
with all the $1 trillion in subsidies. And now it's even more because we're protecting those with our military and spending all that that's all about fossil fuel.
Right. Yeah. It is wild. You're definitely wild. So your business model, I mean, is fairly straightforward, right? Direct equipment sales, parts, accessories. I guess, how do you see sort of servicing your products when they're out in the market, out in the fields, out in the world? How do you see kind of servicing them, making sure that they're still running maybe 10 years from now?
The mechanical components are pretty much bomb-proof. It's like, the transmission in your car, how often you have to service that. It's pretty much a life of the car thing, and that's the way our transmissions electric motors, if you have a table saw, when was the last time you worried about maintenance on your table saw motor? It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah. It
motors
doesn't happen.
don't require that much, and we're
Right.
using permanent magnet motors with brushed motors you had to change the brushes, but we don't even
Yeah.
have brushes. So as far as the mechanical components and the electric motors, there's virtually no maintenance. The electronics is a different story. The batteries are a different story. You can have, if you don't treat your batteries right, you're going to have failures. Um, we've had people with my former company, where they took delivery, they ran the battery down, and then winter came, and they parked it all winter long with a dead battery, and they wondered why it wouldn't work the next year, you know?
Mm.
So yeah, that if you take care of your batteries, you're gonna get, 3,000 or more cycles out of them, which equates to, like, 10 to 15 years of use. So, so that's one thing. The electronics are improving all the time. They're getting smaller, just like your cell phone
Hmm.
and all the electronics that it's got in it. You know, it used to be this computer the size of a house, and now it's
Right.
you can carry it in your pocket. Well, the same thing is happening to the motor controllers and the battery management systems and all those, but it's moving really fast, and you have to test every new thing that comes out and make sure that it's reliable. So,
Sure. So it seems like I'm assuming you've generated a good amount of inbound inquiries from operators, distributors, maybe even municipalities. Out of the different sort of inquiries that might be happening around you, where do you see the fastest point to really getting into some real revenue for the company? Is it, through cities? Is it through individual farmers? Where do you see the path going?
well, currently we're focusing on farmers. So, and we're trying to build that tractor for them specifically. But I think, the path forward is going to be like mowing for city parks, for playing fields, for
Hmm.
golf courses, for big estates. Um, those tractors that are currently used for that have a much better they'd be a much better revenue source than the farmers who can't really afford much more than it costs us to make them.
Sure.
So yeah, as we move forward and we get a little more automation, we'll be looking at those higher end markets, but we want to focus on growing food. I think that's my mission is to try and lower the cost of food and increase the quality of food and the experience of the farmer.
Yeah. So I want to ask just maybe just on that sort of the entrepreneur mindset, because I think what you just said is really great, right? You've got sort of a mission about doing good. You're still going to need to make money for shareholders and people who buy the tractors. How do you, as an entrepreneur, just kind of balance those two worlds of doing good, having a good mission, a noble mission, as well as like, well, we still got to make money and we need to be a profitable business? How do you sort of just balance between those two worlds?
I don't see those as any different. Right now, they're using terribly polluting mowers on golf courses and noisy. There's these homeowners association that won't allow them to mow during certain times when
Hmm.
they live around a golf course. With our machine, it's so quiet that they won't hear it. So every diesel machine that we replace, whether it's on a golf course or on a farm, we're doing good.
Hmm.
We're helping stop pollution, which gets into people's lungs, noise, which makes them lose their hearing, and also climate change.
Hmm.
It's becoming more and more of a factor. You can only deny it so long. I've been following it for 30 years now, and I've watched places that used to be shrouded in fog be sunny for the whole month of March. It's just crazy, the changes that are happening.
Yeah, I know on our end, we've seen huge storms, like the storms seem bigger. I know I was talking to some people out in California, it was like 100 degrees in March. It's like just nothing. Every stat is like, wow, that's wild. We've never seen that
Yeah,
before. So
yeah,
something's happening. Something's going on.
right.
So I want to talk a little bit about fundraising. Obviously, we're connecting right now because you are out running a crowdfunding campaign. I know you've done a couple of these. I guess talk a little bit around why you go to this as a funding mechanism. Why do you use it, crowdfunding? And then what were some of the conversations beforehand to turn on a faucet like this?
Well, my former company, we were very successful. We raised over $1 million, and that sort of got us off the ground. We went from unknown to being on the platform, had over 1,000 investors, and it was just great. And then this time around, was not quite as great,
Hmm.
but we wanted to try it out again because it's nice to have that exposure that crowdfunding gives you. It's much different. You get one angel investor and you've got one person interested. You
Hmm.
get 1,000 investors in a crowdfunding platform, and you've got not only that 1,000, but everybody who knows them. Most of the time, when it's an angel investor, they have a vested interest in not letting everybody know because they want to have as much control over what's going on as possible. The investors in crowdfunding just spread the word like wildfires. It's worked out really well for us in terms of spreading the word. I run into people all the time that know about the E2T, and it's great.
That's awesome.
It's getting out there.
Yeah. So in this raise right now, where do you see sort of use of funds falling? What are the big milestones you're trying to hit if funding comes in through this channel?
Well, primarily hiring people because we started out with just 3 of us this time around, and
Hmm.
to start assembling these things, there's a lot of different we make our own boxes, we assemble everything in-house, and, it takes a lot of people to do that. And also then we need mechanical engineer, electrical engineer. So hiring is probably, I'd say 40% of it. Uh,
Okay.
the facility itself is probably 10, 15%, and then,
Hmm.
the balance is all the components that go into it. We ordered 50 components for this run of 50 that we're gonna do, and it requires a lot of
Sure. 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 Yeah. So if an investor was sitting on the fence right now, just kind of hearing this and and they might be just nervous or they've never invested in sustainability or a manufacturing product like this, what should they be thinking about? What should they be looking at? Not just specifically for your deal, but just in general. If somebody is, a retail investor is just, they're interested in this, but they don't really quite know what they're getting into. How would you sort of kind of hold their hand a little bit through these processes?
Yeah, well, everybody eats.
Hmm.
So, if we can make a tractor that makes it affordable for farmers to grow food less expensively for their local community, we're seeing the price of food now tracks the price of oil
Hmm.
because it's so dependent on fossil fuel, the food that's grown. And it's not only dependent for growing it, but it's dependent for shipping it everywhere.
Hmm.
Food is going up, and those costs don't necessarily have to go up and at the local scale. So I would just encourage people to think about where they get their food and try and help their community farm by supporting this little electric tractor to allow the local farmer to be more efficient and more sustainable with what they grow. I guess in larger scheme of things, you'd also be, if you're interested in investing in sustainability, looking at where climate change is going and
Hmm.
trying to invest in things that put carbon in the ground instead of releasing it in the air, or keep it in the ground, or
Hmm.
in the case of farming, you're actually taking carbon out of the air and putting it in the soil. So that's the only thing that's gonna get us out of this mess is plants,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
that's what made the planet livable in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of reasons to think about it that go beyond, just the regular day-to-day stuff that you think about, but
Hmm.
thinking a little bit about the future
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how you can help the future.
That's great. So let's look forward a little bit here. Your 50 first units are out in the world, out doing their thing, how working the farms. What does renewables look like maybe in the next 3 years? Where do you start to see markets going? Like, what do you see coming even after maybe E2B, E2T, excuse me? Where do you just start to see this? Where do you see these next big milestones happening?
Well, one of the big milestones is two of these E2Ts together and make an articulating, oscillating tractor that's an all-terrain vehicle and a tractor at the same time.
Mm,
It could have such amazing performance, and it wouldn't be, since we'll be lowering the costs of the two-wheel unit, the four-wheel unit will be very low cost compared to the other articulating tractors that are out there. They're $100,000 machines.
right.
And we'll be able to do the same thing with much less cost and a heck of a lot less environmental damage.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
great.
one direction. The other direction, as I said, is with the mowers and the higher end markets like horse arenas. Right now, they drag the horse arenas with diesel tractors, and all that exhaust goes up into the stands and makes people sick. And they could do the same thing with our tractor with a remote control unit or automated. And that it may seem like a small market, but it's a very high end market.
Hmm.
So it could make a huge difference in how successful renewables is.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Steve, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. Where should we send people if they want to dive in, learn a little bit more, check out the campaign? Where should we send people?
Well, our website is www.renewables with an S .com.
Awesome. Awesome.
We're also on Highlander AI.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Well, for all my listeners out there, you guys know I always put the links in the show notes. So I will make sure that we have everything in there. So if you're interested in this conversation and want to learn a little bit more, connect with Steve, go to those websites right now, dive in, check it out, and make your decisions from there. Steve, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is a great conversation. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.